All right, so you're a developer who wants part-time work. Welcome to no man's land, my guy or girl. But lucky you, I've dug a tunnel up to no man's land. Boom, popping up, and I'm here to give you the path out of here. You don't have to do the full-time grind. You don't have to do the really shitty non-development part-time jobs. You're going to do the work, but I can show you the way out. So let's go. Here's what you got to do. Come on. All right, let's start with the most important category, things to stop doing. First, stop grinding Leetcode. Listen, Leetcode's great, and it's meant to prep you for those intensive algorithm style interviews at the companies that do them. There are two types of companies that do these problems that would require you to practice on Leetcode. One are highly sought after companies who get a lot of applicants and they just need some way to weed through them. Apple, Google, Netflix, Facebook, these other highly funded startups, they're desirable enough roles where people are willing to get really good at these kind of problems. That's the first category. And then the second category are companies who think they're in the first category, but they're just deluding themselves for now. Think the newly funded startup who hasn't really proved their market or their product, but they got pumped up with a lot of cash and now they are feeling all cocky and they think they can be just as good as Google and selective as Google and make you do this kind of stuff. Or maybe they have a founder who doesn't really know what they're doing and they just read some blog from Amazon about how they hire and they're just copying it. Either way, they'll find out that they're not a Category 1 company. You just don't need to sit around waiting or wasting your time while they do that. Instead, you want to focus on the third category of companies. These are the ones that they're not sought after enough to be able to pull that stuff, like 5 rounds of technical interviews and a bunch of Leetcode stuff. And they're self-aware about that. They know that. All right. So they're not trying to pretend like they can make you do that. So they have a little bit of a lower bar. But the second thing to stop doing, which is stop talking to recruiters. I know how it goes. You sign into LinkedIn, you get your whole inbox flooded with all these recruiters and you feel like, oh, wow, I'm so good. Look at, they all love me. My job is so secure. You know, recession, repression, I don't care. I'm good with either. Like, I got this. Listen, it's one thing to get like your ego stroked through all that stuff, and it's another to actually get a part-time job. Because I think what happens when you engage with these recruiters on LinkedIn and otherwise is you find out they don't actually want to give you a part-time job or they don't have part-time jobs to fill. And maybe you reach out and you respond to every message and you're like, hey, I'm actually looking for a part-time, and if you find any, think of me and let me know. And then maybe that does happen, but it's unlikely. What's more likely is they'll waste your time. They'll be like, I just want to get you on the phone and I want to talk about your experience and what you're looking for. And I also want to get your email and your home address and your phone number so I can put you in our database and we can call you every other week and sell your data to the other recruiting agency that buys us. And you're just like, yeah, cool. Yeah, sure. I'll give you half an hour. Sure. It adds up and it's going nowhere. Stop doing that. The exception here is if you get a message from a recruiter that's very specific about wanting a part-time role to fill, jump on that. That's like a warm lead in your lap because it shows that whoever they're working for has money, they have interest in the part-time work, and they're ready to spend it, and they already like you. That's a hot lead. You want that. So maybe just keep your eye out for emails and LinkedIn messages that are of that type, but don't engage too much in all the other noise. Because there's a fundamental reason about it that is at odds with a part-time dev job. Recruiters work for companies who have a big need for developers. They have a big willingness to hire them, and they need help, so much help that they're hiring someone else to help them do that. And if they have such a need, they don't want half a developer. They want to build their team, they want to scale, they want to make this work. And so someone who's protective about their time or is like, oh, I can only give you 15, 20 hours a week, it doesn't make sense for them for all the effort they're putting into it. Also, it doesn't make sense for the recruiter either, because they get paid on commission, and what's easier for them, like hire one senior developer or two part-time senior developer roles? It's just more effort to do the latter. They don't want to do it. They don't have a lot of those that come across them. So they might do the intro calls with you, but it probably isn't going to go anywhere. All right, third thing to stop doing is stop obsessing over your portfolio. No one's looking at it. I mean, they already have your LinkedIn. They make you send the updated resume, and then they probably have your GitHub and maybe a Stacked Overflow. And if they're looking at all those, like the website's probably one of the last things they're looking at, and it's already been enough time, and so they're scrolling through that. They are scrolling through it. No one's installing your local NPM package. No one's traversing your deeply nested GitHub project and reading through the actual code. And a lot of that time spent is good if it gives you personal joy, but not because it's going to get you hired. All right, the last thing to stop doing when you're looking for part-time dev work is one that I don't like saying, but I think it needs to be said. Stop being desperate. Stop coming across as desperate. I feel like this really does matter, and it's not one of those tangible things, but let me show you what I mean. So I pretend I was just laid off of my job, and I kept applying to a bunch of things, and it didn't work, and I don't know why, but I'm discouraged, and I'm sad, and I'm at a party, and I'm meeting a lot of new people, or say like a tech event, and they're like, oh yeah, what do you do? And I'm like, with my water, I'm like, oh, what do I was just laid off and I haven't found anything yet. What do I do? Well, I'm between jobs right now. I'm looking. I am applying to a lot of places and I got a couple interviews, but it hasn't worked out. So I don't really know. Ooh, yikes. Sorry about that, but definitely don't want to hire you now. And instead, all right, imagine same party, same water, same situation, laid off, no work. And they're like, hey, so what are you doing these days? Well, I've just been obsessing over GraphQL, and I'm taking my second course on it and just finishing it. And now I'm going to turn the back end for this project I've been making. It's like it's a CRM for hair salons. I'm going to turn that into GraphQL, and then I'm going to deploy it and get some testers on it and see where it goes. Or I made this app that waters plants when you're gone, and I just launched it on Product Hunt, or I got into alpha, and I'm going to see if I can turn it into a side business, and I'm working on a serverless architecture for a lot of this stuff. Or how about this one? Well, I haven't been coding much recently, actually, because I was spending a lot of time with my family camping in the Everglades, and I wanted to do that before my next full stack dev contract starts. So that was really nice. But now that I'm back, I'm ready to dive back into the code. And I think I'm going to learn TypeScript. I'm going to learn how to do TypeScript in Node. All right. That person is like confident. It represents authority and ambition, and it makes people want to be like, whoa, you got a lot going on for you. And it's not even about like, but you don't have a job. Like, there's so much there that you can go off of and jive out that it doesn't really matter that you might not have a job. See what I'm saying? The point on that I want to make is I'm not saying to just sweep all your stuff under the rug or not be authentic. I'm really saying to be clear-headed about what you're after. If you are having a hard time finding work and you are discouraged and you just want to get it off your chest and talk to someone or be real about that, then yeah, just say it. And maybe you have a good connection. Maybe you start an interesting conversation. Maybe it just feels good to be real. But don't go into that showing up that way expecting that you're going to get hired because of it. On a more practical note, here's what else you can do to start getting your part-time job. 1, reach out to your existing network, friends, past employers, classmates, coworkers. I know you've thought about this one already, and whether you've done it or not, here are a couple of things to consider when you're reaching out to these people. Your goal here is to expand your network, and especially your network of warm leads. Maybe you hit the jackpot and someone in your network has something for you on a platter and it was just waiting for someone to come along, and that happens to be you, but that's probably not going to happen. But all these people you're telling know people and they know people, and you can get coffee with them, get on Zoom, share a little bit about your background, do the confident kind of, this is what I know, this is what I'm working on kind of thing. That might lead to a project from them directly or someone they know. Or say you get down that conversation and then you bring up the part-time thing, because you don't have to lead with the part-time thing. That'll just turn a lot of people from warm to cold leads. You get a lead, you get them warm, talking about how good you are, what you can do, how you work, your philosophy on tech stuff. And then you bring up the part-time thing, and then if they turn out to that's a non-negotiable, they don't want part-time workers, then you can say, okay, that's cool, totally get it. I actually know someone who's looking for some full-time work who's really great. I worked with him in the past. Let me introduce you to her. Then you do the intro to this other person and you get a little cut out of the pay because you referred it, and you have a good interaction with your friend, this warm lead who you just thought of, and you got some money. It's a good way to build goodwill, build out your network, and that leads to other good stuff. The next thing to start doing, and this was like mind-blowing for me when I figured this out. It was like I was in my tunnel. I was digging my tunnel to part-time paradise, not knowing where it would be. And then I found this one thing that was like an oasis of possibility and easiness. Here it is. I'll just tell you. Work for a boot camp. Work for a boot camp. You can be an instructor. You can be a mentor. You can be a substitute instructor. Or, this isn't necessarily with a boot camp, but you can be an intern. These make so much sense for you if you're looking for part-time dev work, because they fundamentally are compatible with the part-time lifestyle you want because they're rotational. This makes the hiring bar a lot lower, i.e. no Leetcode, no 10 rounds of nonsense. Their hiring's faster too because they have a real deadline to hit. They have to have a cohort of students for their boot camp, and they need people to teach them, and the cohort has a start and an end date, and they need to fill these spots. They got money to do it. They're ready. They won't leave you in limbo where it's like you apply, but you're not really sure. You do one interview, you're not sure. No. They move fast too, and they'll let you know. They'll be transparent. One of my part-time gigs was with the boot camp, and it's a mentorship, and I was on the phone with someone after 2 emails, and we had just a half an hour talk about how it works. And I was like, so how many more interviews are coming up? Like, what are the next steps? And he's like, oh, no, we're good. And I was like, you don't want me to code in a Google Doc about binary search trees, or you don't want me to do some riddle for you? He's like, no, I looked through your GitHub. I saw your LinkedIn. I know you're legit. And yeah, we're good. So I got the job. Yeah, you got the job. It's so much easier. And the beauty of this, again, because it's rotational, you know it'll end. You could do this right away. And while you're doing it, it has something for you to latch on to talk about. You have some income, and if it's not your thing, then you can focus more on the part-time freelancer stuff like we talked about earlier. Oh, it's so nice. And same with the internships. We know how those work. They're based on the school year. And with those, they don't just hire students. They only go for students because like the pay is lower, and They assume that if you're a developer who has the option to do full-time, you will do full-time, so it's just not worth their time. But if you're persistent and you're like, listen, I want to be an intern here. I'm okay being an intern. I get it. The pay's not as good as full-time role. I'm okay with that. And it works out really well for me. Then that's like a great win for them because they get someone who's more experienced working with their less experienced interns. They get someone who's like humble and down to do this kind of work, and they can hope for you being a full-time worker down the road, just the same way they can hope for these students to come on after they graduate. Think about it. Okay, here we go. Next thing to start doing, start meeting with founders and other small, medium business executives if they have cash and they're ready to spend it. That's key. These places are really fun to work with, especially if they're in the early stages. You can build their prototype, their V1, their V2. You can fix their performance thing that's been bottlenecking them. But the key is they have to have the cash and they have to be ready to spend it. If, especially you're talking to a pre-seed startup with a founder or two, they'll be attracted to you as a part-time person because they aren't ready to hire like a Googler and have a Google employee salary on their payroll because they don't have the funding yet, and that's pretty intimidating. So you being part-time and still being good is like a good thing for this stage. However, a lot of them will be very charismatic and have big plans and talk about all these amazing things they'll do, but after an hour, you'll see that they don't actually have the money, or they're not willing to liquidate their 401k for you. They're holding out because they want an investor to give them some cash on hand, and they kind of just wanted to talk to you, and hopefully it'll happen. And this puts you in a position of waiting and not having as much options, and you can waste a lot of time just waiting for them to get the stones to pay you some money, and it's just not worth it usually. The way to find these people are usually just where the entrepreneurs or the early stage people would be at, like events, networking, pitch demo nights, stuff like that. And you can just do the same kind of thing that we talked about earlier about being confident about how to lead with strengths and position yourself as a contractor who knows what he's doing, who's bringing on clients. That'll get you the warm leads, and then you go from there. Let me round it out with some other ideas that didn't really work for me to get out of this tunnel, to come up in part-time paradise, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't work for you. Maybe it's just my situation. One, looking for job boards, ZipRecruiter, Indeed, and just filtering through the part-time thing. The thing to think about here is I've noticed a lot of these are stale postings that they're just like thrown up there. A lot of them are for recruiting agencies to just get you in the top of their funnel. So it runs on the same problems of the recruitment situation we talked about. However, if it's like a new posting, maybe you get alerts for new postings and that are for sure part-time, then that could be a good situation. Fiverr and Upwork, like this isn't one that a lot of people go. This is a route a lot of people go. I think if you're trying to do long-term part-time work, then doing the thing where you build your base, like your prices are low, but you get good reviews, and then you raise your price, and then you have your reputation, and it's all good. That can make sense. But if you're doing short-term part-time work on an Upwork or a Fiverr, I would say go super specific in what you're offering. Like, don't offer, I'm a React developer. Offer, I'm a React and TypeScript developer who specializes in MongoDB and Node for fintech companies with backends in Rust who are on the blockchain. I don't know. But the idea is someone will search fintech, blockchain, Rust, backend, React, and they'll find you, and you won't have any stuff to show your work, but you are a perfect match, and that can get you rolling. All right, let's review. If you want to get part-time dev work, stop grinding Leetcode. Stop talking to recruiters in the same way you do for full-time work. Stop obsessing over your portfolio and stop being desperate. Start leading with confidence and authority, reaching out to your network, applying for bootcamps. Boot boot camps and internships and start meeting with founders and other small, medium business executives who have cash on hand and are ready to spend it. Listen, this is different. Finding part-time work as a developer is a lot different than finding full-time work. It's humbling. It's less money. It's less prestigious. I think it's more work just because it's not a path that a lot of people take. If you are a full-time developer now and you're at a good company, you got a good salary, and you're like, oh, I got this. I got my LinkedIn inbox is full. I've been working here for years. I got a side hustle. Like, I can find this easy. Listen, man, you gonna get humbled. You gonna get humbled, okay? It's different out here in the tunnel. It requires more scrappiness. It requires more salesmanship. These are different skills that you don't really need for full-time work. What gets you to the full-time dance party ain't getting you to the part-time dance party. But that's an opportunity to learn these things. And unlike Leetcode, I really don't like Leetcode. Unlike practicing Leetcode problems that you're probably not going to use, learning how to be your own advocate and to get your own leads and to kind of create your side hustle like this translates to other stuff. So it's not a total waste. The last takeaway I have is that you're not going to change people's minds or their hiring system or their financial situation. The theme with the full-time work is like, it's good to get all your stuff as best you can, like a great resume, great experiences, get good at the behavioral stuff, and yes, get good at the Leetcode stuff, and it's going to get you there. I think the key with getting the part-time work is learning how to filter out the ones who just aren't on the same page as you, because you're not going to change a big company and their CTO's philosophy on how to hire people, and you're not going to change a small founder who's afraid of spending money to all of a sudden give you a lot of money. It's more about putting yourself out there, not getting too discouraged, and focusing your time on the things that might actually lead to a part-time job. Hopefully, I helped you do that in this video. I'm rooting for you. I want to know in the comments why you're looking for part-time work in the first place. For me, I wanted to free up my mind for my own creative project. But I want to know what other weirdos are out there and why you guys are doing this very difficult, weird path. So let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.